All right, I'm going to start right away. I would very much like to welcome you for this webinar. I'm really excited that so many people have signed up, and we have two webinars, so they're both the same. Yesterday we had one and today one. You will get sent a recording of this webinar. So if at any moment you have to step out and do something else, go to your horses or something, never mind, you will be sent the recording of today. But be sure to leave any questions in the chat if you might have them before. So today is an introduction to the academic groundwork. And I will also try to keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. First, a little bit about me. So my name is Bettina Biolik, and I'm a licensed band Branderup trainer. Obviously, this is not me in the picture. This is our master, Ben Branderup, who is the founder of the academic art of riding, which is an effort to revive the riding traditions of the historic European riding academies. And I have also written this quote, which I very much liked by Ben, two spirits must want to do what two bodies can. And this is also a really nice motto for today's webinar, because I'm going to be talking a lot about spirit and body, of course, as well. I have 3 horses. So it's, you can see on the right side, this is Nazir. And then in the middle, this is Veto. Both are Polish warmbloods. They're both 17 years old by now. Then on the left side is Minor. He is a Frederiksborg horse. That's a Danish breed. Unfortunately, they are, hopefully not getting extinct, but there are very, very few broodmares left. And they're actually fantastic horses. And it would be great if this breed could survive. And Minor has just turned 8 years old. I also run a small stable together with my friend Anna. So Anna, if you're watching, special greetings to you. Our horses are outside 24/7. And well, it's a rather humble place that we're having, but we do everything ourselves and our horses are very, very happy. So I'm an international clinician and I travel all around the world to teach horses and their humans, and I do weekend clinics in Europe and wherever I am invited. Also, hello Marina. So also in Australia, I just had a tour this spring, and I will be going back this autumn. And also, wherever enthusiasts of the academic art come together, I'm very happy to go. I also travel, of course, within Poland, where I live, if enough people get together. And I'm originally from Germany, so I also teach in German. Just if any of you are watching that are German, I also teach in German. Of course, I'm in love with horses since childhood, and this love has never left me. My specialty is dressage, so I'm a dressage coach. And next to groundwork, I also teach launch work in hand, and riding. I also do some liberty work myself, but I haven't really gone into teaching that. Sometimes somebody turns up without tech on a clinic, and that's usually fine with me. So in this seminar, I would also like to talk about my approach to the groundwork, and that involves 3 important points. Connection, communication, and exercises. I tried to come up with a third term with C just to make it more elegant, but I couldn't. But that's all right. So we will speak about each point in more detail. And the really important thing is that the first thing for me is always connection. And I do not continue if I don't have connection. And I always come back to connection when I lose it. And the second step for me is a more kind of purposeful communication, in the sense of that we teach aids, we communicate through the aids with the horse. And I also go back to the understanding of the aids if there is a problem with that. So because often it is really about finding out where the problem is and fixing the cause of it and not the behavior as such or the exercise. So often it's not the exercises which are the problem, but for example, a lack of connection or a lack of understanding of the aids. And this is also why in this seminar I'm speaking about these 3 points in, you could say, quite a bit of balance. So I will really take about 1/3 of this lecture to speak about a bit of connection, the preconditions of groundwork. Then we'll speak quite a bit about the aids, how they're supposed to look like, and then we will speak about exercises, shoulder in, quarter in, and so on. And this is supposed to be an introduction seminar for those of you who want to start with the academic groundwork, and for those who are already doing it and need a bit of a guideline or an overview. So I will not go into too much detail here because that would take much too long and half of you would fall asleep. And if you would like more details, such as how to teach a specific exercise, what to do when a certain problem occurs, I have also made a whole series about groundwork and also launch work and also the natural symmetry of the horse, which are all available in the online riding academy, in the online Reitschule. And I regularly post about that also on my Facebook. And you can also join my classroom where I have almost now 100 videos about training and theory. So this is classroom.academicartofriding.pl. And I will show you hopefully how to get there by the end of this seminar. So the structure of this seminar is as follows. We will have an introduction about the benefits of groundwork and the prerequisites. So he will talk a little bit about connection. Then we will look at the toolbox, so a bit about equipment, then the secondary aids and also body language. But like I said, everything quite briefly. Then we'll speak about exercises, and I have grouped it a bit into basic and advanced exercises. Well, for me, those exercises I have listed under advanced are also kind of basic, but I wanted to group it in a certain way to not have one chapter too long. So we'll talk about basic exercises, the circle, shoulder in, and quarter in. And then the more advanced exercises, half pass, pirouette, renvers, and then school halt and collection. And then, of course, as always, you will get a summary from me. So let's dive right in. Well, they say that a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So if we speak about the benefits of groundwork, I have here a picture of Minor in 2020 on the left side, and then 2022 after like 2 years of groundwork and launch work education, that's on the left side. And I posted a photo collage of him on Facebook, so there were several pictures of him in this collage, and I got the comment by someone saying they want a horse just like in the picture here on the right. But of course, there were several pictures of Minor in this. And well, I was a bit smiling because I think, yeah, you can make your own, because the academic groundwork really works. And we will talk about some of the benefits now. The cool thing about groundwork is it can be done with all horses of all ages and all breeds, all sizes and conformations, and at all stages of education. Also, I could add in every physical condition when cleared by the vet, of course. So often even horses that are really quite physically challenged, they can still have some benefit of some of those exercises or even the standstill exercises, for example. Well, groundwork we use to start schooling young horses. So we prepare them for riding with the groundwork, but of course also preparing them in a different sense. So I will come into more detail in the next slide. So schooling young horses is really excellent with the groundwork. We can start also, of course, with an older horse that we want to start working from the ground. It's really great for rehabilitation because it's just very good biomechanically. It's a very gentle kind of work, and you can really fine-tune it to the requirements of each individual horse. So that's why a lot of the academic trainers are also taking rehab horses, for example. Also, it's great to build up the horse after a training break. So if for any reason you had to pause your training due to injuries and so on, and then yes, we can reintroduce the training through the groundwork, building up muscle again. And we also introduce new exercises on the ground. And even later on, when you are done with your kind of basic education on the ground, you will come back to groundwork more and more. Or again and again. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. Sorry, I had an eye on the chat. So you will come to groundwork again and again, for example, to introduce a bit more collection, yeah, and so on. And the education process in the academic art of riding is that we start with groundwork. So all horses, doesn't matter if older or younger, and all people, doesn't matter their background, we start with groundwork. Then we start launch work so that we can also do the trot and canter in balance. And through that, the horse has learned to balance itself first before we put a rider on. Yeah, so they first develop physically, mentally, they know all the exercises, and then we put the rider on top. And the horse only has to deal with the weight of the rider, but knows everything else already. Unfortunately, what happens instead often is that the only preparation the horse gets for riding is some launch work where it gets used to the saddle and the bridle, but often this is done without working the horse in balance, rather having it run around on a circle. And well, if the horse is smart enough, it can kind of figure out how to not hurt itself, but more often the horses get very stressed by this. And they learn that training means a lot of running and adrenaline. So in the groundwork, we have a different idea. We work in a very calm way instead, explaining each step carefully, and then also we give the horse really all the time that it needs. So there are really a lot of benefits to groundwork, and I have listed some of them. Of course, we can probably find even more. So the physical benefits are that the horse is really just building up strong muscles, a beautiful top line, good back muscles, nice core strength, a great croup. Yeah, so everything is included. You could say all the good muscles that we want to build. The horse really builds a lot of coordination, balance, and gets very supple in the process. And so then like I said, the horse first learns to carry itself before adding the rider's weight. On the psychological side, the horse also learns how to learn, because often the young horses or even older horses, they don't really know how to learn, how to maybe go through a moment of frustration, or also being really open for that work in the arena. So that they know, well, anytime I can probably relax again now, and I'll just try to figure it out, and nothing bad will happen if I don't figure it out. Yeah, so and if we teach the horses really step by step and with a kind of in a low pressure kind of environment, they really start building confidence in themselves, confidence in us, in the training, and they build a lot of trust. We can also use the groundwork to build or to improve self-regulation. And that is when we give the horse always enough breaks so that they can always reset themselves. Yeah, so they might get a little bit tense and be like, oh, I don't know what to do. But then nothing bad will happen. And they go like, oh, okay, maybe I'll think about it. And even if something was difficult, we give them a break, let them just calm down again. And then they go like, oh, okay, even if it's difficult, it's going to be okay. And they also start building a chain of what I call a chain of knowledge. So we start with one little thing, and then we add another little thing, and we add another little thing. And before you know it, the horse knows a lot of cool stuff. And you do some groundwork, and somebody is looking from the outside and says, wow, that looks pretty cool. How did you do that? And it's just these little steps that build on each other. And then the horse also just really knows a lot of things. And I think it makes them very confident. Well, also for the human, the groundwork is incredibly beneficial. So we develop our feel and timing. So we learn to feel through our hand. The good thing is we see everything in the groundwork. We see what is happening to the shoulder and the head and the back and the hind legs. And we can compare what we see, what we feel in our hand. So this makes us very much developing our feel and also our timing, because we can see the horse very well. So we also train our eye, like I said, so we see really all the kind of biomechanic aspects, and we learn to see correct movement. And we observe the horse from the ground. Yes, so for example, the natural asymmetry and that the exercises are correct. We also learn exercises and how they are built up correctly and what the exact steps are. And the cool thing is we look our horses in the eyes. So that we really train on eye level. We see what's going on with our horses, and that makes this training just really very fair. Yeah. And I must say, for me, the academic groundwork really has it all. So we are building a great connection to our horse. Yeah? So you get immediate feedback. Who are you in the eyes of your horse? What does your horse think about you and the training? We establish a really soft and elegant communication. So we are teaching the system of aids. We'll come to that in a moment. So both rider and horse have actually some signals to communicate with, and it is very understandable for both the rider and the horse. We get a really deep understanding of what is correct bending and correct posture, and we become able to work the side movements in a very correct way, and that also gives your training a clear direction, so a plan which works. And we also find we can really use the groundwork also later when we're more advanced to find a more playful way into collection and the higher dressage exercises. So we develop those with fun and not with a lot of pressure. And we just really create a strong basis here. So emotionally, spiritually, physically, to give our horses the best possible start into a hopefully long life together. And our horses, they increase in dexterity, coordination, and strength. And we become very knowledgeable and hopefully a really empathic trainer for our horses. And hopefully also a good friend. And the time invested in groundwork is time you will get back later in years. That's something I can really promise you. And you will also get it back with the health and the hopefully long life of your horse. But of course, what comes first? Because in this seminar, I'm talking about the more gymnastic kind of groundwork, so involving bending and the side movements. But of course, we don't start there when we start working with our young horse or when we start working on the ground with an older horse. So for me, the all horse training starts with connection, or you could say relationship. That I really get to know this being in front of me, and I truly try to understand my horse. So, for example, how a horse perceives the world. So I try to understand in what way are the senses maybe a bit different to mine, because horses perceive the world quite differently from us. And honestly, I might never fully understand it, but I can inform myself, for example, read some books and studies about the topic. Because I think often we draw conclusions about the horse's behavior based on our own perceptions of the world. And that leads to many misunderstandings. So yeah, for example, to say, oh, come on, that was there yesterday, you're just trying to get out of work, stuff like that. Also in regard to how the horse's brain works and what might be the differences to our brain. We're both mammals, so we have a lot in common, but there are important differences as well. So for example, how much information can my horse take up and how long does it need to process that information? And to also understand that very delicate and elaborate nervous system of the horse. I think horses are really special in the animal realm when it comes to that. They have they're very fine receptors of their environment, and they react to their environment in a very strong way. So, for example, what are the signs that my horse is stressed? And how does it look like when my horse starts to relax again? And what are the more subtle signs that my horse starts to disconnect? That's also individual for each horse. So, for example, when I work my Vetto, the black horse, when he feels a bit too much tension, he starts looking away from me. And my other horse, Minor, he starts getting a bit nibbly, for example. So horses have different ways of responding to stress, and they show it in a different way. And the better we can become in detecting the small signs, the better we become in just keeping the training in a low stress kind of, on a low stress level. And then also, how can I reconnect? And can I have small changes in focus, small changes in reconnection? So to become really good at reading our horse's body language and communication signals. For me, that's really actually the first step of any kind of horse training. And every day, the big question that I ask myself in my training is, how are you? So I really look at that horse in front of me and I'm like, how are you doing? So I'm trying to forget my own agenda for the moment, and I'm just really trying to figure out, well, is that horse feeling safe? Can I do anything to make you feel better? And of course, I'm also asking myself, well, how am I doing? Because I'm also 50% of this connection. And I think we often forget a bit ourselves. We are very much focused on the world outside and looking at our horses. And often riders can name a lot of faults of their horses, but maybe forget also a bit their own. And horse training is a really wonderful way of getting to know yourself, getting to know your emotions, because you also will experience frustration when training with horses. Not everything is always nice. And how do you deal with that? What kind of person are you when you get a little tense? What kind of person are you around your horse? And what triggers you? What are your habits? And I really like to develop this kind of brutal honesty about myself in that case, because I think the more honest we can be about these topics, the better we can connect to our horses. So, for example, I might have days when I have a lot going on and I'm a bit short with time, and then I get a little bit tense when I'm trying to do something with my horses. And I will speak with them about it. And while I brush them and say, oh, I'm not feeling all that good today, and I'm a little stressed, I must say. And then often what I get from the horses is a deep sigh, a snort, and it's if they would say, "That's all right, no problem. You don't have to be perfect." Yeah, and I really think that horses don't mind, but what they do mind is dishonesty or trying to pretend something, because I think they find that really creepy. And to understand my horse's basic needs, really. So to really understand what drives the horse, what the main goal of any horse is to stay alive. So I know that we think, well, there's no danger in your paddock and everything is fine and you're provided for. But still, the horse's instincts are the same as when they are living in the wild, maybe a little bit more dulled, but still. Still, horses need safety. They need to feel safe. They want to be a member of a herd. They need adequate forage, so good quality forage, and they also need some space, some freedom, to roam around. Because when I have a horse with separation anxiety or metabolic issues, or a horse that's depressed or, I don't know, very tense because of the living conditions, there are other topics which take priority over shouldering. And one really has to talk about it, because I meet so many horses who, for example, live in a small box stall for most of their day, and people still think that's okay, just because their horse doesn't cause them too much trouble. And for me, the riding arena is very much like a classroom. Yeah, so we need focus, attention in order for the horse to learn anything. Because otherwise the horse will just really not understand and will just react to a pressure. And in order to be able to focus, the horse's basic needs have to be met. So the horse needs to feel safe and relaxed in the riding arena. Otherwise, no learning is possible. And when the horse is calm and curious, that is really the best state of mind for learning. So curiosity. Horses are actually very curious and inquisitive creatures by nature. And I really want to keep this alive, yeah, or to reawaken it if possible with a horse that has lost it. And of course, learning should be fun. Yeah, so I really want my horses to be in this kind of a bit figuring out stage, being a bit curious and to see, hey, how can I solve this puzzle, what you give me? Because also otherwise, what is the purpose of all of this? And when it comes to training, there are lots of things we should do before we put on a cavesson and start with bending or side movements. So I really want to be able to, for example, groom my horse peacefully, that they can stand still in one place without squirming around, trying to push into you or walking away. I want them, of course, to accept the halter and the lead rope and to give to pressure from the lead rope. I want to be able to touch them all over, to make the hooves, to take up the hooves, and also that they are not a danger to the vet. So doing some medical training, also that they can be tied up safely. Trailer loading is a wonderful task to do with your horse. You can very much get to know your horse and yourself while trailer loading. And then we will start also with leading training, which is a very important part of the training. So not only that you can kind of drag your horse to the field and back or survive, that you walk next to him, but that you can really walk, stop, go slower, faster, turn, that you can lead from the right, from the left, and all with a certain kind of softness and listening. Then we will also, in the academic art, we will often do what we call leading with distance, and that's a bit of a mixture in between the leading and the launch work, so leading with more distance. And then, of course, we want the horse just to be good with the daily handling. I meet many horses that, for example, don't lead well and that are not relaxed in the riding arena, and then it's not time yet to think about bending and shouldering. And another important point is that the horse should be okay with the groundwork position. So the groundwork position, this is the position we will use in order to do the groundwork. I have here a little bit of a drawing, so you know what I mean. So we are standing in front of the horse, facing the horse, and we are walking backwards in this position. And the advantage of this position is that we can really see the whole horse. So from the skull to the poll, the neck, the front legs, the chest, the hip, the hind legs, we can really see correct lateral balance. So how the horse distributes the weight, between the legs. We can see correct rotations. And I really love this groundwork position because when we are walking forward, so standing on the shoulder, at the shoulder of the horse, turning forward, walking forward, it can actually happen a lot easier to overbend the horse and to lose sight of correct biomechanics of the whole body, because we mostly focus on what's in front of us, and that's the head and the neck. So in the groundwork position, an overbending is much less likely. And we can also really make use of our body language in a really fantastic way. The horses are very susceptible to that. I'll speak about that in a moment. But of course, first, what needs to be okay is that we practice in this position first. yeah, without adding all the bending and the side movements, so that we are just okay with this leading position, that we can walk with a good distance to the horse without the horse pushing on us, that we find the right tempo together, that we can walk, stop, back up a little bit, and keep distance. And before that, I really don't start with any exercises, because horses first need to understand that this position doesn't invite to push you forward, but that it is just a leading position, that I'm still leading when I'm in this position. Well, and you should also try to be able to walk backwards yourself. When we try this for the first time, it can be a little bit awkward because we don't do that a lot in our daily lives, at least not to that kind of extent, so that we can walk a regular circle and just be okay with walking backwards before we have the horse in our hands, and not being afraid that we stumble and fall over, for example. So then, so that was a bit about the whole connection part. Like I said, just quite shortly, I have a lot more about that in my classroom and also in the webinars that I give in the online academy. Now let's come to the second point, which is our toolbox. And here I will also start showing you some videos so that it's not so dry. As soon as we work with a shape or like a bending, we start using a cavesson. So all the leading work, all the basic handling, we still do in a halter. And then as soon as it comes to the more shaping, more gymnastic kind of groundwork, we use a cavesson. I very much prefer the French type cavesson with a flexible nose piece. And it usually has a bicycle chain as a nose piece, which is padded and wrapped with leather. And there are 3 rings in the nose piece. The middle one is used for the groundwork. So you can see in the left picture, I've drawn these arrows. Yeah, so this is really excellent in order to place the skull of the horse correctly in what we call stelling. I'll talk about that in a moment. Because when you use a halter, and then you often get a wrong placement of the lower jaw and of the head, yeah, so that the bending is not really complete. And for example, the horse gets a little bit of an S shape, that the one part of the spine is bent one way and the other part is bended another way. And then the rings on the side, they are used for work in hand, which you can see here on the right side of the picture. So we fasten a rein to those rings on the side. The cavesson has to fit well, of course, so right fit is important, not too tight. And the horse must be able to chew and to place the lower jaw, so at least that they can chew a goodie. But also not too loose, so that it doesn't slide, because that's also very uncomfortable. It is, after all, also sitting on the nose, and that's also very sensitive. There are many different kinds of cavessons. So you can even have rope cavessons, with then the ones, like I said, with the chain, some which are only leather, some which are rather heavy and bulky, and I'm not a big fan of those. And you can also have some with a fixed nose iron, but these have to be really well suited to the horse, and they often pinch them a little bit. And there's a bit of a difference in terms. So in some parts of the world, every work we do with the horses on the ground is called in hand. Right? In the academic art, we differentiate between groundwork, which is done on a single line fastened to the middle ring of the cavesson, and work in hand, which is done with a rein, and that's fastened to the 2 rings on the side, or to a bit. And in work in hand, the hand is really used in the way which it is also in riding, so with contact on the rein, and really using the hand as if riding. So there is a difference, right? Just that you know that. And here's just one more picture of a cavesson. So this is the one that I really like. This is the Ben Bandrop cavesson. I just really like it. It's a really fantastic tool, and it fits the horses' heads very well. Then other equipment we need is a soft launch line or a rope. And don't make that too long. So about 3 to 4 meters is really plenty. And pay attention that it's nice to handle and that it also has a small hook. so that it is not so heavy on the horse's nose, because after all, like I said, the nose is also very sensitive. And we also use a whip. So a short dressage whip is fine. And traditionally we use a wooden whip. So I really like those wooden whips. I think they're really nice to handle because they are not so flexible. And usually, so for example, I use hazelnut, and they transmit the energy very well that I give into the whip, so that I not accidentally whack my horse. And the whip, of course, shouldn't be used to increase pressure or to hit the horse with, yeah, just to mention that. So the horse should never be really frightened or intimidated by the whip. That's not really beneficial, because the horse will just disconnect from the whip and try to avoid it and try to look away from it. And then you will get into trouble with your bend. That will just ruin your bend. So I want my horses to focus on the whip and to be even attracted by it, to think towards the whip and not think away from the whip. I find that very important. And some markers or cones can be useful. For example, some pylons or cones. For example, if you want to mark yourself a circle or some points in the arena. So that can be very beneficial. And yeah, some practical tip, try to practice handling your equipment without your horse first. So we lead the horse with our outside hand, and then we have the loops and the whip together in our inside hand. And try to have everything nicely organized, no mess. What I often see is that students, for example, they keep all the rope in one hand and then the whip in the other, and that just really is not very nice to lead your horse with a feeling. It really makes a difference. Also, when you are able to handle your equipment well, that also builds your own confidence, which is really something the horses feel.